Welcome to our deals of the week this week. We've got two great houses in Pinellas County. One's in Clearwater, one's in St. Petersburg. I'd be remiss if we didn't address the issue with interest rates. There might be one interest rate cut this year, according to the Fed. And now we're seeing the 30-year mortgage jump up to 6.22%. So good news for some, bad news for others. But remember a couple of things here. One, obviously, if you're a cash buyer, you are now going to be facing less competition from buyers who are going to get a mortgage. They may be temporarily priced out of the bracket that they were in to account for this higher interest rate. Also, there's just a psychological effect when interest rates go up. If people are not too involved in the buying process at this point, they may hit the pause button and wait for that for the rates to go down. But even if you are I'm not telling you that you should do this. This is entirely up to you and in your budget and how comfortable you feel about this. But a lot of people are going to hit the pause button, and fewer buyers in the market mean lower prices. That means you have more leverage. So if you are a buyer and you see these rates go up, that stinks. Do the calculation, figure out how much it might cost you extra in mortgage payment. But also remember that you're going to have more leverage now. Fewer people are going to be showing up at this house that you want to go see. So if you can get that house for what, $5,000 less than you would have if interest rates had continued to come down, $10,000 less, $15,000 less, don't give up just because interest rates have gone up. Because remember, you're in some ways buying the monthly payment as well. You can refinance down the road. Your competition is going to be less for the time being. So, consider taking advantage of that. And certainly with cash buyers, there's going to be fewer mortgage buyers out there. So that might work in your favor, or that should work in your favor. So let's just jump into the first house here. And it's a good one. It's in Clearwater. Let me just show you on the map where it is. I've been doing more Clearwater houses lately because it just seems like from an affordability standpoint, we've been seeing more deals out that way. So let's zoom way out so you can get a feel for where this is in Pinellas County. So here's downtown St. Petersburg. There's downtown Tampa. Clearwater is sort of on the northern end of Pinellas County. And you can see with this particular house, one of the things that is really nice is this is a quick shot right out to Clearwater Beach. Boom, boom, boom. One of the great beaches in Florida, really. Used to get voted one of the top beaches in the country. So you can get right over to Clearwater Beach. Sand Key Park, which is a nice park along the beach. And then you have access to all the other beaches here on Gulf Boulevard. So really good location. And this is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house with 1,600 square feet, 1,595 square feet. These are all the numbers that I like. If you watch any of my videos, I like, sort of a 3-2. These are, if you need to sell it at some point down the road, it's going to be a lot easier to sell than a 2-1, a 3-2, or a 3-1.5. This is like just a right middle of the market kind of house. As well that I love to start seeing these houses under $300 a square foot. And the bonus here, and there's a couple of bonuses, which we'll get to in just a second. But let's look at the price action first. I was going to look at the photos, but let's look at the price action first because I think they're doing a really good job here. They did not waste a lot of time. They put it on the market a couple of weeks ago at $489, $307 a square foot, which based on this house, I would have said that's not a terrible price. This is not an unrealistic seller. And then about 6 weeks later, they dropped it $15,000. So the listing agent got together with the owner of this house and said, we're not getting enough action. Once you hit that really 4 weeks or 6 week mark, if you're not getting an offer, at least an offer, you're not getting any feedback about where you should be price wise, you're going to start having to look at dropping the price. So we're down to $474, below the $300 a square foot, which I love. And let's jump into the photos, and you'll notice a couple of things right off the bat here. The curb appeal is not great. Whenever I see a house in the, close to 500,000, I typically, in my head, I picture there's going to be a little bit more landscaping up here. There's not even any shrubs around the front of the house. But as a realtor, these are the houses that I love because they don't look that great. That first photo and the listing is not a scroll stopper. If somebody's on Zillow, they're going through, they're going to look at this house, and it just kind of looks a little bit tired from the outside. This tree should never have been planted here. You can see the hump here, so we've got some roots. First thing I'm doing is getting rid of that one. This one is borderline. It's still, it's not hanging over the roof, but it would still probably go at some point. And then just doing some really nice landscaping in here, and then a nice big palm tree here in the middle. I think would change everything. Pressure wash the driveway. Obviously, I think that would improve the curb appeal a little bit. The point is, I think there's room on this house because it's just not that first impression is not great, even though it's a pretty good picture. So living room looks nice. We've got looks like some decent laminate there. I also notice, and these are things in my head I'm already taking money off of. These look like older windows. If impact windows would typically just be one pane here. You would not have, well, you typically wouldn't. You definitely wouldn't. You can't probably see it here, but there's a little crank here. So these are crank out windows. They're aluminum windows. At some point, if this were my house, they would go, probably sooner than later. But a nice big living room. This is a little bit strange. I don't know why it's sunken. You can see there's a little tiny step up here. And then even going back to the entry, I'm not exactly sure what this house might have looked like in its original version, but there's a little bit of a step down here too. I'll be honest with you, I don't like it. I don't see the purpose of it. It's not like it's a sunken living room. It's like a 6-inch step, but that's the way the house is set up. That's the way the house is set up. So nice and clean. What we like to see, some nice granite here, these nice shaker cabinets. These look pretty new to me. We've got stainless steel appliances. So this is a fairly recent renovation. I would say probably 5 or 6 years. Whoever renovated it, you see this a lot with flippers or investors. They do a lot of the work. They do a lot of good work, but these windows are expensive, and it's one of those things that I think they just hope people won't notice. But these are old aluminum windows. They're not the best insulated. This is going to be something that you would probably want to do at some point, get some impact windows in there. Also just aesthetically, you've got all these dividers here out to your pool. And if this was just, 2 big windows, probably you could even do 1 window here without the divider inside, depending on how big this was. But, big back room here, dining area is how they're using it. Use it as a living room. Pet peeve, getting rid of this right away. I know I'm kind of being a little critical here, but if you watch my other videos, I hate barn doors. I don't see any reason for them. They're a little too trendy. So pretty nice bathroom. Again, I think this is a 6 or 7 year old remodel. Bedroom sizes are good. And this is what I didn't tell you about earlier, which is you got a really nice pool back here. I mean, this is a really nice setup if you're looking for a pool. And the lot is a 1/4 acre. I think it might even be a little bit bigger than that. All right, so I just want to show you real quick the one issue that we have with this house. And you can see on this map, this is the flood map for this house. And this little purple shape here is the house. All of this orange is the X flood zone, which is a no risk or low risk flood zone. And this little sort of river of kind of purple is the AE flood zone, which is a high risk flood zone. So this particular house is like basically the street is in a flood zone. So it's within, they call it within 250 feet of a special hazard flood zone. So it's something that you would have to be considering before you made an offer on a house like this, that it is very, very close to a flood zone. So not saying it's going to flood. It's not officially in a flood zone. If you got a mortgage, you wouldn't have to get flood insurance. It's something that should be considered, and we would do a little bit more work to see if, in fact, this house has ever flooded. I don't think it has. So the house itself the AC was replaced last year. It's not a last year renovation. I think it was renovated in 2000. So it looks like it's in pretty good condition. The price right now at $297 a square foot, to me, is a little bit high. I would actually like to see this house around $270 per square foot, which would put me at $430,000. And part of the reason for this is I just think it needs some cosmetic work, obviously. But I also think, given the interest rate situation and the fact that this house is now 45 days on the market, I think we're still a little bit too high. It is a pool house. It is a 3.2, almost 1,600 square feet, but I think we could get it for less than that. So target price of $430 might be a little bit aggressive. Drop a comment. Let me know what you think about this house. It's got a little bit of quirks to it. We need to do some tree removal up front, and it's got that little sort of sunken, kind of half sunken living room, which is a little bit strange. But drop a comment, let me know. And now let's take a look at house number 2. Okay, and here we are, house number 2. This one is in one of my favorite neighborhoods. As you know, if you've watched my videos, it's the Distant Heights neighborhood. The house itself had a new roof in 2018. The AC was 2026, so it's a brand new AC, which tells me, sometimes you can read too much into these things, but when a seller puts a new AC in right before they list it, they've kind of accepted the fact that the old AC was going to be a sticking point. And they went ahead and spent 7, 8, 9, 10 grand without even bothering to negotiate with a potential buyer. That tells me that the seller is motivated. That tells me that the listing agent has done a good job preparing the seller for what's coming. So let's take a look at the price action on this one real quick. $284 square foot for a house. If it's in good condition, it should start attracting some buyers. Obviously, we're in a situation where the interest rates, may be affecting that a little bit. So let's buzz through the pictures. And again, if I didn't mention this already, this is kind of meat of the market, 3.2. It's a little bit bigger than the last house at 1,672 square feet. You'll see one of the drawbacks here in a second, even though aesthetically, I don't know why these photos out front are done portrait style, but this would have been the garage here, obviously. So it's an enclosed garage. They added some square footage with the garage, but let's just keep buzzing through the pictures here so we can get a better shot. Aesthetically, curb appeal looks nice. Nice, big, bright. A lot of light comes in those front windows. I mean, that's a pretty good sized table, and there's plenty of room for it there. And this is kind of set at an odd angle a little bit, right? It's kind of a room behind this. I'm not even sure where the TV is from here. But a good size open kitchen, dark cabinets, granite, or at least solid surface countertops. Sort of a little kind of bar setup there. Some nice woodwork on the living room wall. I mean, it looks like they did a really nice job on this kitchen renovation, which was from 2021. Again, a barn door in a living area is okay. I think this probably would have been the garage. That's not the end of the world, because you don't need a ton of privacy in a living room. So sort of a nice living room, family room there. Looks like a Jack and Jill bathroom setup. The house is super clean. Now, this is a pool home, but with sort of an asterisk. Nice outside pergola there. And it is an above ground pool. A lot of people kind of thumb their nose at that, and I get it to some degree. So yeah, this is the original house would have been this, which would have been the classic 1-2 bedroom with a 1 bathroom. And they turned the garage into a primary suite with the big bathroom. And then this probably would have been a Florida room at some point that they enclosed. So overall, pretty nice job there. And so we have some new stuff here. Let's just check it out. It was painted outside in 2025, new AC 2026. A new metal roof in 2018. These things last usually a little bit longer than even architectural shingles, so you should be good there. The water heater is 2019, not bad. Yeah, that kitchen was a 2021. Some custom closets in there. Obviously, we know the nice gazebo. And then, you like to see this. This is, I'm not saying you're, sort of playing your hand here, but you're sending a signal to the market that come see the house, come make an offer. If you're telling me the owner is motivated, the likelihood that you're going to get a 475 offer is almost nil at this point. So let me know, drop a comment, let me know what you think. Converted garages, a lot of people have a problem with. This one looks pretty nice. Looks like they did a pretty nice job with it. The neighborhood is good, Distant Heights. It's a no flood zone. I don't think there should be any concern there. The listing agent seems to have done a good job working with their seller here. Methodical price drops, not afraid to go out and say, hey, listen, let's tell people we're motivated. Let's get some people in here and get some action on this house. They're approaching 2 months. I think it's still a little bit high, but I don't think it's terrible at 284. Once we start getting way under that 300. So my price target on this one, I set it at 275 per square foot, which would put it at 459. And we're currently at 475. The more I think about it, the more I think we go probably even 449 and start to get some interest from the seller on this. Drop a comment, let me know what you think. I know interest rates have gone up, so if you're out there looking and you decide to pause, I totally get it. I respect that. But consider that there are a lot of people thinking like you, that they're going to wait till prices or interest rates come down. And when interest rates come down, more buyers come into the market, more competition means prices either, not saying will go up, but you might be less likely to get a deal. Whereas right now, with this sort of interest rate kind of shock, these sellers are getting fewer and fewer buyers coming through. Leverage is what it's all about. When you have leverage, you're going to get the deal you want. So drop a comment, let me know. Hit the subscribe button so you get notified of new videos. My name is Steve Reynolds. I'm a realtor here in St. Petersburg. I cover all the Bay Area, some of Hillsborough, Polk County. You can go up to Pasco and Hernando County sometimes. So if you're looking to buy or sell, give me a call, send me a text, send me an email. I'd love to help you out. And with that, I will see you next time.